UFC 302 had a great main event. I mean, Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier, fantastic, competitive fight as well. Very competitive. And I'm kind of glad it ended in a finish, because if a decision was made, it could have gone to Poirier. Not because Poirier won, but the judging for UFC 302 was absolutely shambolic. The state sanctioning body, the judges, everyone should be ashamed of themselves over some of the scorecards for UFC 302. The most egregious example of bad scoring in UFC 302 was definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, the Sean Strickland fight versus Paulo Costa. Sean Strickland, even though I have mixed thoughts on the guy himself, he won that fight 100%. He easily won 4 rounds, and you could even give him a 5th round as well. You know, he could have won all 5 rounds. 2 of the judges scored it to Strickland. There was one judge who scored it 49-46 Costa. What? Costa, I could argue, didn't win 1 round, let alone 4 of them. Like, what? This is the issue with boxing and MMA. Yes, promoters get in the way of doing the big fights. Yes, there's a lot of greed in boxing and MMA, but the shitty judging that we get sometimes in both sports is really the worst part about it, and it sours the whole experience for me. If there was one more judge who gave it to Costa, and Costa ended up winning the fight, that would have been shambolic. I mean, we've had more examples of this. Usyk and AJ too, that was a split decision. The fact that Costa and Strickland was a split decision blows my fucking mind. Because there should be some fucking integrity, man, in this judging. You're getting paid to watch these fights, judge them correctly, and yes, I know that people look for different things when judging. I get that. Some fights are very close as well. I mean, close fights happen all the time in the UFC and in boxing. It happens. Strickland even had a close fight with DDP. I honestly thought that Strickland won. I'm not mad at DDP winning, because it was such a close fight that you could score it either way. That's fine, that's acceptable. But giving a fight to Costa 49-46, ridiculous. Costa didn't win any of that fight, man. And I like Costa. I honestly thought he'd win by knocking him out. I wanted him to win by knocking Strickland out. I'm not particularly a Strickland fan. He fights very boring. He says he's going to war, and he's going to bleed and make the other guy bleed, and they're going to have a battle to the death. And then he just jabs him all night. But that jab is effective, and it won him the fight, and he should have won the fight, and I'm glad he did, but not by a split decision. Are you fucking kidding me, man? Ridiculous scoring, and it taints the entire sport. It ruins the entire fight, and it makes the commission and the judges look like fucking idiots. People might say that's why you don't leave it in the hands of the judges. When it's that one-sided, it shouldn't matter. The fight should go to the right person. There's a lot of factors in scoring a fight, but like, come on, 49-46? 49-46? Costa. You gave him 4 fucking rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds. Because what if one more judge scored it that shitty scorecard? It's just ridiculous, man. And in general, UFC 302, it wasn't a great card. I mean, the main event was good, but that's about it. You know, Kevin Holland had a highlight there, but with the submission, but that's about it, man. And the Strickland, like, I was gobsmacked. And we've got robberies, you know, we got the Jack Catterall versus Josh Taylor fight in boxing. The first one, Josh Taylor didn't win that fight at all. That's a blatant robbery right there. Luckily, Costa didn't win the fight. He didn't get the decision, but still, it could have been that close. If another judge gave it to Costa, like, it just taints the entire sport and taints the credibility of mixed martial arts and boxing. Both of these sports have a big issue with like scoring. There should be more judges so this kind of thing doesn't happen, and there's a wide variety of scorecards. You know, there should be like 5-6 judges. There should be instant replay. I'd say there should be one criteria that each judge should look at and be like analyzing like the fight, but there is a one criteria for UFC. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I'm just glad that Strickland won, because it could have gone either way. And not because Costa won the fight by any stretch. It's just appalling judging that night. And that wasn't even the only example of poor judging in UFC 302. I mean, there was blatant bad cards, and this has got to stop because it just fucks up the reputation of the sport. It really does, man. Sorry to get on here and just be like aggressive, but it just pisses me off, man, because it does hurt the sport. The fight itself was boring as fuck, actually. I hate watching Strickland fight because he just walks forward, jabs, and teep kicks. That's his entire game, and it's not interesting to watch. You can't convince me otherwise. And Costa, he was just running away. Again, Strickland's game plan is good, it's just not a fun watch. And people criticize like Leon Edwards and Izzy for having boring fights, but nobody seems to criticize Strickland, especially when Strickland is like, oh, we're going to go to war, you're going to see him bleed, and it's just 5 rounds of jabbing. It's like, I don't know. Again, he's a fine trash talker, I guess, and he's an interesting personality to have in the UFC. But and he's a good fighter, don't get me wrong. He has a good game plan when coming into fights. But he doesn't have interesting fights, I'm sorry. His most interesting fight as of late was Alex Pereira, and that's because Alex Pereira came forward and knocked him the fuck out. Anyway, I'm glad that Strickland got the W, so I just hope we can regulate these judges some more and the judging some more, and really crack down on these horrible scorecards. That's all I gotta say.